Welcome to LEA 550, Leveraging Innovation. This is lecture 3, and we're going to be talking a little bit about what is a healthy organization. You know, we're talking about things that you're trying to diagnose. We're talking about how to figure out where the innovation needs to be. So, to understand that, in order to be able to see the negative, you have to at least understand what's the positive. So in this, we're going to look at some building blocks of a healthy organization. What are some of the building blocks? Specifically, we're going to deal with 6 building blocks of a successful organization or a healthy organization. And then from there, we're going to just talk a little bit about some of the behaviors of a toxic organization. We're looking at that not to be negative, not to just put people down, but we're going to be looking at that so that we can figure out, okay, if this is negative, how can we fix this? So the first trait of a healthy organization is that healthy organizations display authenticity. Um, the first thing is a healthy organization are willing to be open and accountable to others. People that absolutely have no want any accountability whatsoever, they're not open to others, then they're not being very authentic. They're living in a facade. A facade. They're living in their own. I guess they're buying into their own press, if you will. Another thing about authenticity is that a very authentic organization and authentic leaders, by the way, are those who have a willingness to learn from others. I've always found it very interesting with Jethro. Jethro had never led an organization as large as Moses, and yet Moses was willing to listen to his father-in-law when his father-in-law was trying to give him some structural organizational advice. So one of the things about displaying authenticity is that there is a willingness to learn from others. And finally, um, displaying authenticity means that you are willing to maintain integrity and trust. You're willing to make sure that people know that, okay, I said this and it's true, and if I said something but it didn't work out, I'm willing to admit that it didn't work out for this reason. And you can be trusted that, well, he told me that, and I believe that. So the first thing that healthy organizations do is they display authenticity. Now, a second thing that they do is that they value people. I've been in organizations that, to be quite honest with you, people were a means to an end. And this becomes a very unhealthy organization. So, healthy organizations value people. I like what Fred Rogers said. Some of you might remember Fred Rogers' Neighborhood. It says, as human beings, our job in life is to help people realize how rare and valuable each one of us really is. That each of us has something that no one else has or ever will have. Something inside that is unique to all time. And I think that's true. So sorry about the helicopter going over. Um, so what does it mean then to value people? Well, number one, it means that you believe and trust in people. You know, that I believe that you can do this. I'm trusting you to do this. And there's a genuineness in that. Um, the second thing is by serving others' needs before your own. In other words, it's being others oriented. That's the second thing. The third thing is by being uh, receptive, non-judgmental, um, actually listening to what somebody says and why that they're saying what they're saying. So healthy organizations truly value people. They recognize the value and the merit uh, that people that they bring to the organization. Also, healthy organizations develop people. They do this by, number one, providing opportunities for learning and growth. How many people in organizations, and this is true, they want you to do this job. They have no desire for you to be promoted. They don't want to develop you to become something more than what you are. That's it. That's all that there is. You will find that your excellent workers, the people that are high value, will not stay with you if you're not willing to develop them. Number two, um, you develop people by modeling appropriate behavior. It's not a, well, do as I say, not as I do. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. So that's important. And then also, you develop people by building up others through encouragement, affirmation, saying, I appreciate what you're doing. I recognize that. Boy, that is really good, and being genuine about it, not just saying that. So healthy organizations develop people. They help them to become more than they could have been without your influence. Another thing is healthy organizations build community. Look at the little cartoon that I have down at the bottom. It says, I want the public to think of us as the company with a heart, but I want you to think of us as the company that will chew you up and spit you out and smear you into the carpet if you screw up. Um, this is important because a company may have a persona, but that may not necessarily be the corporate culture. And so you want to make sure that you're building a community, a culture where people are not just, this is just not how it operates, but we're a community. We're a team. We value one another. So here's some ideas. You do this through strong personal relationships, and that's important. Actually developing relationships and spending time with those people uh, by working collaboratively with others, working together, coming up with a plan, coming up with a solution, coming up with an innovative idea. You're building collaboration, and by valuing the differences of others. One of the things that I always did, especially in pastoring a church, but even in other realms as well, I always wanted to make sure that, for example, that I had women on our administrative team. Now, I'm not trying to get into a theological debate about whether it's right or wrong to have women in leadership. For me personally, I feel like that it's good, and I've always done that. But I'm not, if you don't believe that, that's okay. But having said that, there was a reason for that, and that is that I wanted that different viewpoint. I wanted to know what exactly their thoughts were on this. What was their perspective on this? So you develop this particular culture and this particular community, a community that has the same vision, same values, same norms, same beliefs, same symbols, same systems, and yet in that culture, that corporate culture, and yet you're valuing the differences. And then healthy organizations provide leadership. And you can see the little cartoon that I have, but there is some leadership, and it's really providing healthy leadership, good leadership. A good leader, number one, envisions the future. They're visionaries. They can see where this thing could go. They can see where they can take this thing. It's different from being a manager. A manager is somebody who just wants to organize the systems, organize the programs, try to accomplish this in the most beneficial and healthy way that they can. But a leader is a person who has a vision. A leader is a person who not only has a vision, but they like to take the initiative. They like to actually implement something. They like to go after something. And finally, a good leader clarifies the goals. They mobilize people. They say, listen, this is what we need. This is how we can do this. And they put different people in charge of different things and have them to carry out that role. So a healthy organization provides healthy leadership. And finally, healthy organizations share leadership. Now, this is really important because If you're a person who has to do it all, if you're a person that absolutely insists on micromanaging, your leadership is only going to go so far. But a healthy organization, if you're coming in and you're diagnosing an organization, if you're diagnosing your organization, for instance, this is one area that shared leadership is an absolute business prerequisite. Um, so, what is shared leadership? Well, number one, it's facilitating a shared vision. That means that I didn't just come up with this all on my own, but together, collaboratively, we came up with a vision together. We share power and willing to release control, let somebody else be able to make significant decisions. I realize there's accountability. There has to be accountability, but the sharing of power. If you're not willing to give up any authority or any power, then you're not really sharing leadership. And then finally, by sharing status and promoting others. It doesn't always have to be just about you, and that's one of the big factors in all of that. So let's talk a little bit about toxic leadership. In toxic leadership, there's four that I have listed there, and let's talk a little bit about some of these different types of leadership. First of all, there is the autocratic toxic leadership, or if you will, this is a person who is very dictatorial, a person who is an authoritarian. They like to deal in high fear, low trust, low risk taking, low creativity, very poor communication. They have the Machiavellian approach to this, which is that they're going to protect themselves at all costs. It's an autocratic style of leadership. If that's taking place, that's very toxic to your leadership. Then there is narcissistic leadership. This is a leader who is very self-absorbed. Uh, they lack any empathy. They don't care how you're feeling. They don't understand. They're not going to put themselves in your shoes because they don't care about you. They're narcissistic. It's all about them. They have a need for admiration. Now, we all like to be patted on the back. We all like an attaboy. Nothing wrong, or attagirl. There's nothing wrong with that. But they have this narcissistic need, this absolute need for admiration. They're not opposed to exploiting others for their own gain. And they have a deep sense of entitlement. And then there is addictive leadership. These are people who are obsessed with their leadership, with their title, with their position. They're very manipulative. Uh, they find themselves isolated. Often they're withdrawn. Um, they they usually are spending a lot of time lying and in deceitful or being deceitful, and they have a lot of low self-esteem. And finally, there is the negative parent. The negative parent, this is a person who is critical, constantly, a negative parent, they're constantly critical of the kids, critical of what's going on. So they're very critical about anything that's happening there. They use a lot of negative reinforcement instead of saying, listen, this is great that you're doing this. Instead of this, they like to do it the other way and say, you know what, if you don't get this right, you're going to be fired, or you're going to be this, that, or the other. Um, they use fear as a motivation rather than positive motivation. And they do a lot of avoidance where it's not their fault, it's somebody else's fault. They avoid any type of risk taking whatsoever, anything like that. So when you go into uh, diagnosing your organization, diagnosing another organization, you might want to take these things that I've talked about and then maybe run them up next to what am I seeing? What am I observing? What are the things that are happening that are taking place so that I can figure out, okay, so in all of this, is this a healthy organization? And it might even help you to figure out where the problems are, where the innovation of the change needs to take place. All right, that's our lecture. And listen, I'll look forward to talking to you next week. Get all your homework done, and God bless you.